Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the time that we have tonight together as Christian women, and pray that you'll be with us and lead us in everything that we think and everything that we say. In Jesus' name, amen. Several times recently, the question has come to me, how do you reestablish a line of communication to your husband? I saw the question on the table in my office. Several people just sent it down. It seemed like all at one time. The question just kept coming. And I thought, well, I'm going to just put down a few things, like write some notes and this kind of thing, you know. And then I went into a Christian womanhood class one day, and it just evolved into a talk. And so instead of a few little ideas, I thought, I got to thinking, how do you reestablish a line of communication with a husband, one that you have not communicated with? And I thought the same way you establish a line of communication in the first place. The same way that you establish a line of communication with any person. Young person you might be teaching, Sunday school person, how do you establish a line of communication with some boy when you're dating? It's all the one and the same thing. And you establish or reestablish lines of communication only 5 ways. There are only 5 ways unless you believe in that spooky sixth sense stuff. There are only 5 ways you can get to anybody. And you know probably what they are. Touch, sight, taste, smell, hearing. There are 5 ways there are 5 senses. Unless you're spooky, you can only get to people through those 5 senses. Now, if you want the spooky one, you add that one, too. But I'm not very mysterious. I'm sort of, it's just there. What you see is what you get, they say be mysterious. And I've tried being mysterious, and people say, what's she up to? Recently Mrs. Holbrook was visiting me. Mrs. Holbrook is my Sunday school teacher, and she smiles all the time. Somebody said, keep it up. People are wondering what you're up to. And said, the thing is, you're up to a lot. God's business. Just keep that smiling, because people think there's something's wrong with her, because it just isn't natural that a person just goes around smiling all the time. And they'll think, she's got something, that she's gonna pull out. Right, she's got something in the Lord Jesus Christ. And so these are the only things I know to tell you. I'm not very spooky. I'm not very mysterious. There are 5 ways. All we can decide is how, within those 5 ways, to get to people. I've been teaching this since I've been a teacher of little children. For almost 15 years I've been teaching this, and it never dawned on me that this is exactly how you go about having a line of communication with your husband or with any other mortal. Perhaps, now, if you're married to someone from Mars, if you're married to someone from the moon, my sweetheart's the man in the moon. Did you ever know that one? I'm going to marry him soon. It may too. Oh, I can't remember it all. Well, now, see, if I were mysterious, I'd say, look at the rest of it. I don't want to give it all to you. The fact is, I can't remember it. But I thought that was the best romantic song when I was a kid. I thought that was just something, and I looked at the moon, and I thought, is there really a man in the moon? I am kind of spooky, aren't I? I didn't realize how spooky I was. Come to think of it, I'm mysterious. It's probably the new glasses that make me so mysterious, don't you think? The same way you first establish a line of communication, the way you establish with kids. I've said to teachers, I don't know, from since 1906, get through to kids, but through the 5 senses. Don't just get up to kids and talk. That's all it is, just talk. If you're going to teach about the feeding of the 5,000, bring tuna fish and crackers. That's the easiest one to talk about, because they can smell tuna fish, and they can taste tuna fish, and they can hear your story when you tell about the feeding of the 5,000. You can show them a picture. You can get through to all 5 senses. And I've always thought that was fantastic, because when anyone did that to me, I remembered the story. I can still remember teachers who spent enough time to really do something instead of just stand up and talk all day long. Teachers who just talk all day long, you don't remember them. If you had teachers who just talk, if you do remember them, you remember them with passion. And it is the wrong kind of passion, because you were so bored. It was so dull. I've hated dull. I hate dull stuff. Not the people. But the stuff they do. I just hate if they just do something. If there would have been an explosion in some classrooms that I grew up in. If there had just been, if there had been a fire. Listen, I thought fire drills were great. I mean, if something happened, you know. And one time a fire truck came to our school. Color, action, noise, you know. Now, everyone doesn't have to have excitement in the same way I have to have excitement. But I'll tell you something. You have to have it. Now, it may be a quiet excitement for you. Maybe more of an intense thing. Something happens and you're able to get a lot out of it. But, you know, fire trucks don't really do a lot for you. Maybe you're the kind that you don't need the fire chief with the emergency hat on and all that, you know. But you have to have excitement. And people are dying for a little bit of excitement. I mean, they just absolutely dry up and blow away. They just, you might as well die as some of the lives that we lead because we don't use the senses that we have. Don't use any sense and don't use our senses. So teachers, what you can do to get through to kids. I know if you stop to think who really got through to you once, they either acted out a story or they brought an object. Didn't you like those teachers who had a brown paper bag? Oh, I don't mean they were, you know, drinking on the side. I didn't mean that kind. I mean the kind who had a brown paper bag full of goodies. They had a veritable storehouse of goodies down in a brown paper bag. One of the goodies, one teacher I had, a sweet, lovely, quiet, ladylike lady, but she always had something nice. And we were talking about a paisley scarf in a reading story, in a reading book. Paisley, P-A-I-S-L-E-Y. And I thought, what in this world is that? I thought that was a curse word. I didn't know what it meant until she reached down into her bag and pulled out a wool scarf. I remember it till this day. And it was a paisley scarf, and she let us touch it. And we didn't eat it or anything like that. But she did let us touch, and we saw it, and we touched it. And it's just something different. I know you can think. You're thinking right now of teachers who did this very same thing. A teacher who helps me in my classes at Hyles-Anderson College said today, do you want me to go to all that trouble for just 5 minutes? And she was telling something where she was going to get something done, and she's really putting some spark into my classes. And when we just announce that there's going to be skits given in our speech class, not only do we tell what we want in those skits, but here come 2 staff members in to come in and demonstrate what kind of skits we want. And it's all a big surprise, and no one knows the staff members are going to come in and give the skit. And she adds a lot to the class that way. It makes me so disgusted that we in Christian work have the attitude that only for a minute or two, do all this just for a minute or two, when television people go through all kinds of conniption fits for a minute or two. And they have a moving program, and I want to tell you, if they don't have a moving program, and there's some blank space on a really hot top flight television station, if there's much blank space, they'll fire the engineer. Some teachers ought to be fired. Sunday school teachers ought to be fired. Or should we just teach them? Would it be better to just teach them? I've taught this to teachers, you see. And I've tried to help teachers to see all of this. But I didn't realize and didn't stop to think that's exactly how you establish a line of communication with your husband or keep that line of communication. Now, perhaps you have a husband who works at it too. That's great. But if you don't, these are things you can do. I am a little weary of having people say, hands raised, hands raised. Can't we have something for men like we're having for women? Yes, we could, but most of them wouldn't come. This is our career. Marriage is our career. If we work outside the home, it's usually temporarily, or if we weren't able to make it and got fired, it wouldn't be too bad. People would say, Mary she's not going to make it in the world, outside. And, it's just terrible. She has to come home. I mean, you can get fired and they don't even know what you say. I decided to come home. Your husband gets fired and comes home. Or he doesn't make it in his work. And that's a mighty big thing. I mean, his job, his career is his life. Now, you can get some men to come to these meetings. At family conferences and so forth. And I think it's very, very good. I am for it. But I'm a little weary of our saying, let's get the man, let's get the man. It's going to be you anyway. It's going to be the woman. And if the woman does right, and doesn't just say I'm going to try to do right, I am going to do right the rest of my life. Whether it works or not, I'm going to be right. And if it doesn't work, then God knows I'm a better woman because I'm doing right. And if I just don't think it's going to happen through the men. I'm sorry. I think men are going to They're going to run our churches. They're going to run our government. They're going to run our businesses. But I think women are going to be the ones who decide whether they're going to make a career out of marriage. And if they do, I believe that you can almost have it with almost any husband in here. I'm sure that there are rare cases where you could do everything as right as you know and go get help and find out where you're not doing right. And by the way, you can think you're doing right and you can say, I did everything I know. But who knows the error of their ways? I looked that up in the Matthew Henry commentary today just to think about it because I thought, Marlene, good night. You have so many sins that you confess. Have you just confessed and confessed and confessed and then been afraid maybe you forgot something? Well, 1 John 1:7 takes care of that. Because if you forget something, he'll take care of your secret sins that you don't even see. Of course, you go to for counseling about your secret sins. But so many people say, I know I've done everything I could. There's still more. There's always more. But ferreting it out and asking God to show it to you and confessing your secret sins is another thing too. Okay, let's take touch. Touch him and do everything you can to encourage him to touch you. Aha. Do you do everything you can to encourage him to touch you? 1 Corinthians 7:4-5. The wife hath not power of her own body, but the husband. And likewise also the husband hath not power of his own body, but the wife. Defraud ye not one the other, except it be with consent for a time, that ye may give yourselves to fasting and prayer, and come together again, that Satan tempt you not for your incontinency. Oh, do you know what I hear married women say? Why, a Christian student's wife came to me the other day and said, he's going to try not to do it. And I said, try not to do what? I didn't know what, She said, well, he just irritates me to death. And I said, well, what are you talking about? She said, he walks into the kitchen or wherever I am, and he flips me on the you-know-what. And she said, he's going to work at getting victory over that. I said, getting victory over that? I thought I thought that's whose you-know-what you wanted him to you-know. This was new to me, that your husband was supposed to get victory over it. Now, I know that a lot of people, even in Christian schools, there's the flipping, the flipping when they go by, and I think it's terrible. Why is all the flipping coming before marriage, and we're getting victory over it after marriage? I don't understand. She said, well, you know what had happened after that? And I said, no, tell me. And she didn't want to be so gross. And so I kind of just said, well, you mean, she said, well, the children, and I said, you don't have locks on your bedroom door? Well, they might know. I mean, if they're old enough to know something, then they're seeing what the picture of marriage should be. I don't mean you sit down and talk with your children, and I think it's a private thing, and I think the marriage bedroom is a sacred place. But I didn't know that you were supposed to feel like a sinner when you went into it. I think we're getting in back seats of cars before we're married and letting other couples see us, and even young kids, and thinking that's all right. They don't even seem like they think it's wrong. And after we're married, we're afraid if we go into the bedroom, somebody might think something. Well, if your kids are old enough to think something, then probably they're old enough to know something anyway. I mean, most of them know that they didn't get here, just through the cabbage patch. I think we're so mixed up that our minds are so tangled and so unbelievably warped that we think sex is good before marriage and sex is bad after marriage. I think Christian women almost think that. I think you can yourself excuse sex sins among younger people and just kind of say, well, that's the way it is, and almost be upset about an older married couple indulging. Touch is one of the ways to establish communication. And you do everything you can to get them to touch you. You don't do everything you can. Are you one where he comes in, he goes, hey, hon, flip, and you go, gotta get supper done. He said, I don't care, so I don't mind. Most nights he minds terribly. Where's supper? Or do you call it dinner? Well, it's supper where I came from, so it's supper. I just got to get it done. That's all. I got to get it done. He said, well, we can sit down a little bit, can't we? Well, I don't know what would, now other times, you don't get home in time to fix supper and it doesn't bother you, but tonight you want that supper done on time. Other nights you throw an onion into the oven so he'll think something's going. When he comes home, he says, wow, hon, what's cooking? You say, oh, boy, it's a surprise. It's a surprise to you, too. Get through to their sense of smell. Onions in the oven. You run in the house, you throw on the plates, you put the silver down, you throw an onion in the oven. Get the oven going real big, and man, it sounds like, boy, I've prepared. You don't do that, do you? You act like you know what I'm talking about. Wicked women. I did it before I was saved. I've never done that. But I have known some wicked women, and they told me they did that. When I'd come home from school, if Mom had the table set, it didn't matter whether anything else was done or not. I thought I was prepared for. Do you get that feeling? If you just have the table set, it just seems like they're ready for you. You may have just gotten in the house 5 minutes before they did. But if the table's set, it makes them feel really good. Then you can open the can of tuna and throw it in with a bunch of whatever, and have that onion smelling. They say, what is it that had the onion in it? There you go. Boy, that's bad. You say, just wait. Boy, dessert's special tonight. It's different from anything we've ever had before. And pull out a pot from the freezer and throw some onion on top of it. I don't like that. Say, okay, any way you want it, I don't care. Just so that's manipulation and that's bad. Don't ever do that. But do the touching. You have not power over your own body. You really have no power over your own body. You don't decide whether you're going to be touched or whether you're not going to be touched, except it be by mutual consent, and that for only a time. And you have no right to your own body. You have no power over your own body. It's a wee bit tiring to have people not want to be flipped, and then when he goes and flips somebody else, you get flipped in a different way. That's a little bit sickening. Oh, I know you're told to be a lady. But do you know, I think, at least around here, being lady is considered being appropriate. Isn't it? And being appropriate with your husband is something completely different from being appropriate in church. Some of you, I believe, carry the being lady over into the marriage bedroom and sit up properly on your bed with your hands folded, as if you're little kids with birdies in the nest when they used to teach, fold your hands. Miss Priss and proper. And actually you say you wait until he gets to bed before you will begin to decide that you're going to get ready for bed because you're going to be proper. Where are all the proper now? The proper after you're married is to get with it and get excited about that man. And as Betty Pennell says, put that man in his place. And his place is in your marriage bedroom. Encourage him to touch you. Touch. You want to establish a line of communication? Touch. That's how you established it in the wrong way once. That's how you establish it in the right way if you're married in purity. That's one way it was established after your marriage. Now reestablish it that way. I don't know what I don't know what you would tell me if I could counsel with each one of you, but people I know, I talk to women who haven't had marital relations for 6 and 7 and 8 years. They say, well, it just started this way, we started there was that barrier come in between us. I heard that they used to have old-fashioned bundling boards, they called them, that they put up in the middle of the bed back in I don't know what days. And it's as if there's a board up between the bed. That's when you get in bed and he reaches over to get your hand and you go, There's a little snort there. Do you know how to do it? Let's practice. No. And you act like you're in bed with a stranger. And you tell him to get his hand over on the other side of the board. It's as if there's a board there. Or if you're sitting together on a couch or in the car, it's as if there's a wall between you. And then a lot of times there is a wall between you. You say, well, if I get over next to him, people will think something. Good. That's the idea. They'll think you want to sit close to him. They'll think that you maybe, are interested in each other. You know how you were when you were little kids? I like you. Well, how much do you like me? Well, I don't know. Well, call tomorrow night. We'll talk again about it. Well, do some of that. I like you, hon. Ah, good. Maybe that's all then. And then just do a little more. Now, I know when you start this, he's going to say, what's the matter with you? And he's going to suspect that you don't have Sunday dinner ready when you get home. And that you're trying to make up for it. That you think he'll forget there's no dinner when he gets home if you're doing some cuddling. He's going to be suspicious because you've been icy cold for so long. I don't think you can just reestablish a line of communication in a few minutes. Not even maybe a few days. But if you haven't touched each other for a long, long time, maybe you ought to just kind of brush against him accidentally. Where you can say, oh, I'm sorry. But he knows that, he gets the feeling. See, people, touch is powerful. That's why we don't want our kids holding hands. Do some of you remember the squashy feeling you got in the pit of your stomach when you held hands the first time back when you were 3 years old? Women seem to find a way to hold hands. I taught a little girl who only had nubs for hands. And I thought, now she's certainly, I was getting my kids, she was in early junior high years, and by the last time I taught her, and I thought, now, I'm not going to have to get her. Sure enough, somebody was holding her nub. I'm not kidding. They were. She came to me one time and said, Mrs. Evans, what am I going to do when I get married? I can't wear a wedding ring with that. I thought, oh, good night. What am I was just worried that I had no idea she'd ever get married. I wasn't worried about where the ring was going to go. God gave me something so good. I said, well, you could just get a gold bracelet and put it tied around your wrist, like people wear just gold bands, She said, oh, good. So we got that taken care of for the time. She's always asked me something like that. And I tell you, I got so tired trying to figure out what that girl was going to do for hands, feet, teeth, and hair, I didn't know what to do. She didn't have any of them. And her mouth was from clear over to one ear to another. It had been stitched up. I mean, the girl, was totaled. She'd been totaled. And Joy Martin says, Dr. John R. Rice's daughter, says she's going to write a chapter in a book or something called The Totaled Woman. Just throw them in the junk heap and trade them in for a new one. I know your husband would like to do that sometimes. Yeah, mine would too. Touch him. Do everything you can to encourage him to touch you, and you touch him. It may at first have to go very, very easily because you've rejected him so many times. And, of course, there's not a man who doesn't take a rejection sexually of his body, of himself, as being something that is just him. You're rejecting him. No matter how many headaches, no matter how many whatevers you have, it's to him a rejection of himself. So after he's been rejected so many times, it's going to be very difficult for him to let you. It's the same as some boy. A boy will say to another boy, say, find out if so-and-so will date me if I ask her. How come? He doesn't want to stick his neck out and get it cut off. And so he's going to see whether and the girl goes and finds out and comes back to him, and then they get together and they want to be so sure that no one else will horn in and that they're never going to be looked down on because they were dropped or something like that. Well, all that stays into play after you're married. And after they're rejected so many times, they're probably not going to come to you too easily. And it's going to probably be your starting all over again. And you may have to do some of the courting if you've rejected long enough. Okay, touch him and encourage him to touch you. Number 2, sight. Appeal to the sense of sight. Paint up, fix up, and clean up. Have you heard of those campaigns? Paint up, fix up, clean up. Mrs. Lee Robertson said at the Women's Jubilee, Sword of the Lord Women's Jubilee this last weekend, said, Dr. Robertson's always said any old barn looks a little better with paint on it. Well, she doesn't wear much paint. And I think I heard Mrs. Hiles say one time that it took her daughter 2 hours to come out with the natural look. We really go for that natural look, but it takes a long time to look natural. To look gaudy doesn't take long. Just throw on some paint and go, woo! And by the way, the paint is coming out like that, isn't it? The brown, you look like you've got shoe polish on your mouth. Instead of bleeding, it looks like your blood has turned to rust, and that you're kind of dogwood. That stain on a dogwood. All kinds of weird colors are coming out. And not anything natural at all. And a lot more of the red on the face. And they're kind of even going back to the little round red spots that the little old ladies used to wear, like little old ladies used to wear, who are my age, were my age, that I thought were so funny. They are coming, this is coming back, all of that. So the natural look we're talking about. And it does take a couple hours to get that natural look. But paint up, fix up, clean up. I said this one place, and it was up in a beautiful section close to Elkton, Maryland, where we were having a family conference, and the people had never heard of the paint up, fix up, clean up campaigns. You've heard of it, haven't you? And I looked around outside in this beautiful lawns, and I realized they've never had to paint up, fix up, clean up. Wouldn't that be something to live in the section of a country who'd never even heard of that campaign? Paint up, fix up, and clean up. Bright colors, smiles, fresh and alive. Make your apartment or house fresh and alive. You say, listen, you just don't know, Mrs. Evans. I live in a dump. Congratulations. I've lived in some myself, believe it. If you could go back to visit any of the places we've lived in, I dare you to show me one worse than we've lived in. I mean, we lived in a house one time. Talk about being spooky. Maybe that's where I got some of this mystery that I didn't know I had. We lived in a house that if you went to get the broom, 6 mice jumped up at you. It was out in a cornfield, and it was an old house. There was no foundation. We just had one room in it. You had to go out, one little bedroom, and you had to go out for a lot of things. But you had to go out and get wood and bring into an old coal stove, and we only had to pay $2 a week for it. And we got to be able to go through school because of it. Then we graduated to our very own trailer. It was a 1906 model, I'm sure. And they added a room onto it. I just brag about it. Now, I didn't even know it was that bad, but I do know that the university kind of condemned it. But it wasn't one of their places. It wasn't one of their better, more elite. And they really had nothing to do with it and kind of frowned upon students living there. I realize that all now. Every time a student family had a new baby, they just added on a new room made highly of cardboard. The high content of the room was cardboard, and each student just owned their own home by turning it over to another student family. Ours was $400, and we owned our own home. Amazing. The trailers rotted out. Of course there was no plumbing in there. We had a central unit to which we journeyed during the night. We had all kinds of visiting to do. That bathtub, there was a bathtub in that central unit. Don't tell me about it. There was no hot water in it, period. If you want hot water, you heated it, or you went over to the unit to get it. But we got through school. And these were not in days that it was that bad. But you can have a fun time in a little old rotted out apartment, or trailer, or room with a high content of cardboard in it. You certainly can, and you can. Listen, go get you a tin can and paint it red and put a plant in it. Or just don't set mice traps, and you'll have something alive in there. At least there'll be something you can have to talk about. Or get you one little old goldfish bowl and throw in one goldfish. If you're not talking to each other, at least you'll have something you can talk about, the goldfish. Just sit and look at it. It's therapeutic. They're even taking goldfish into disturbed children's wards and hospitals now. And if y'all are disturbed, just get you a goldfish and study the goldfish and talk about the goldfish. If you don't have anything to talk about a goldfish. Talk about something. Get something and make it fresh and alive. Put notes around. Oh, y'all know this, but do you do it? And other people have told you, but still, do you do it? Do you make it a way of life? And not a long note, just a sentence. Just a sentence like, I saw this thing you did today and it really made me happy. That's all. It doesn't have to be I love you every time. Or dear, you are precious. Or, you say I just can't go that stuff. I'm not the kind of woman for it. It just gags me, especially before breakfast. I do love him, but I don't like all that precious, darling, sweetheart. How about just writing some facts to him of something you like about him? Do you know any facts you like about him? If you do, write them down so you can think about it when you're about ready to kill him. And you can read it real fast. Get it up and start reading it. Appeal to his sense of sight. Paint up, fix up, clean up. Bright colors. Let's talk about bright colors a little bit more. I always have tried to wear bright colors for the kids at school. If it was a rainy day and if it's a rainy day and you come in a black dress with a black umbrella and black socks, it doesn't go over well. I mean, it just adds to the gloom of the day. Now, I know the charm schools say wear black, brown, gray, navies and those, but if so, then add some color. Men love color. Or ask your husband. Maybe your husband doesn't, but did you ever ask him? Or do you ever think of dressing for him? Most women dress for other women or dress according to the fashion. Their husband says, I wish you'd wear such and such. And you say, it's not in style. Oh, that's dumb. It's not dumb if your husband wants you to wear it. Unless it's something indecent, and most of your husbands are not asking you to wear something indecent. In fact, they'd love for you to wear something decent. Most of them would. Smile. Wear a smile all the time. The fact that women's lips telling us, you go around barefoot pregnant with a big smile on your face, don't let that intimidate you a bit. Men need to have a big smile on their face. It's not just women, it's anybody. You feel better. Barefoot pregnant or whatever, you feel better with a smile on your face. Just smile. It's going to do something for you. You're not doing it necessarily for everybody around you. Just shuffle along and be... this junk they're teaching us from the world, don't be intimidated by it. Smile. And smile all the time. Ruth 3:3 says, wash thyself, anoint thee, and put thy garment upon thee. Anoint thee. Smell good. Wash thyself. Yeah, take a bath. Just clean up. Wash behind your ears. Brush your teeth. Throw some Banaka in your mouth. I mean, you say, well, why? Nobody's coming. It's just my husband. No one else kisses you, I hope. I mean, do you throw the Banaka in your mouth because the mailman comes? I mean, what do you mean just because it's just your husband? Proverbs 31:22 says, tapestry, silk, and purple. Song of Solomon 1:10 says, rows of jewels and chains of gold. There must be something to this paint up, fix up, clean up, don't you think? Number 3, appeal to his sense of smell. Back at Elkton, we were at the Berry's home. Tom and Jeanette Berry, and Jeanette Berry is a lovely, wonderful hostess. She wrote this book, Hospitality in the Home, little booklet by Jeanette Berry. And she has a home that is a home of hospitality. And yet she told me how she works to not have to be a slave to that home in order for people to come in. And how she really worked to see to it that and save money to have a microwave oven so that when she comes home on Sunday, there's a lovely meal ready. And she's planned and worked all that out. And that she doesn't have to have everything just completely in order to have someone in. And she wants to be able to do other things and does do other things and yet is very hospitable. And, of course, the fireplace was going. And as we walked out of the house, it made me think of some times when we've been in a cabin in the woods. I can remember a cabin in the woods where it almost seems sinful, doesn't it? Y'all are looking at me funny. We were married. I think you think it's sinful anyway. I'm afraid, honestly, that married couples, after your children are gone, have you ever felt like you were in sin when they left, all were gone, and you were alone in the house? You haven't? I don't know whether you haven't. Oh, your children have never left, have they? I forgot what age I was talking to. Almost everybody else knows what I'm talking about. You're too young. You get in a car alone, and there aren't 16 kids in the car saying, Mama, can I do this? He's hitting me. Well, I want something to eat, Mama. I got to go to the bathroom, And you're alone, and it's spooky. You don't know what to say to each other. And you have to go back to, I like you. You do? Yeah. You almost have to learn each other over again because you've let those kids come in and put the wedge between you. And you've let something, or the job, or whatever it is, has put a wedge between you until you almost do. I went out, I smelled that smell. Do you all get all squishy over fireplaces? Yeah, I know what you mean. And that smell was coming out of that chimney, and it just seemed romantic to me. Well, maybe your husband, maybe if, I'll tell you what, if you don't have a fireplace, roast some marshmallows over a candle and burn them a little bit. Do it, or somehow get that fireplace smell going. Maybe your husband's the kind that says, get that stuff out of the house, I'm choking to death. What's going on? Have you ever tried a scented candle? And he goes, I can't stand this thing, try to figure out whether he can stand it or not before you. But if he's the kind that this kind of or perfume. Does he like perfume? There's all kinds of new kinds. And every time somebody says, what do you want? I say, the newest kind of perfume. Just get me the newest kind of perfume. Go to the department store and see what it is. And I tell, for Christmas, I say to my sister, perfume. I say to my mom and dad, perfume. And I know they think I must drink it. The thing is, do you have the kind of skin that you put it on and you can't smell it after a little while? I mean, have you ever smelled those women who go by and there's just a lovely odor as they go by? It's gone on me. I'm pitiful. Clothes weren't made for me. Perfume wasn't made for me. I can't even smell good. But if you can smell good, throw that stuff on you. I mean, whatever you threw on you threw it on before you were married. That got through to him, didn't it? Didn't it get through to him? All of this that I'm telling you, don't do if you're not married. No, you shouldn't do any of this if you're not. I mean, it's not, here I am, come and get me. It's don't touch. All of this is why you don't send a girl all perfumed and pretty in her pretty spring clothes out into a car alone, unchaperoned with beautiful music. So if that's what you don't do before you're married, maybe that's what you do after you do get married. Put on some pretty spring clothes, put on your perfume, go out in the car. Maybe you'll have to sit alone for a while, but maybe you'll get the idea. I don't mean just go sit in the car, but I mean, get in the car, and if you can get him to go someplace, turn on this nice music, I'd rather have the news. And now in Jordan, you can't do anything about Jordan, but you can do something about your husband. So don't opt out for take the new, see if you can ease over to some beautiful music. All that worked when you were a girl and it shouldn't work. Put it on now. Use it now. Why don't we have any sense? This seems so stupid. This is stupid. In other words, everything you've always known since you were a little girl, go do it. The Bible teaches it. It says it's okay, girls. You can do it. Song of Solomon 4:10. How much better is thy love than wine, and the smell of thine ointments than all spices. I mean, boy, get with it. Now, I know I know you've been told that if you don't have enough money to buy deodorant, use soda, right? But I do not know what you do if you don't have enough money to buy perfume. I've never heard of a substitute for perfume. I do not know. Do not try Camphoronique. Don't try that. I don't know if there's any substitute. Song of Solomon 4:11. The smell of thy garments is like the smell of Lebanon. How's the smell of your garments? Ugh. Song of Solomon 5:5. I rose up to open to my beloved. My hands dropped with myrrh, and my fingers with sweet-smelling myrrh. It's in the Bible. It's in the Bible. Everything's in the Bible. Isn't it something how God He gave us everything that we need. How to be married and stay married and have our husband stay in love with us. How to get a man. It's all right in the Bible. We don't even really have to have another book. Not another book in the world. Now, praise the Lord, He lets us have other books, and He gives us other good Bible-based books, and it's fun to read them. But we don't really even have to have one. Everything we need is in that beautiful Word of God, that love letter He sent to us. Number 4, appeal to His sense of taste. Give Him food at unusual places and times. If you have a hard and fast rule that there's not to be any food outside of the kitchen, bring it to Him any place. There is no rule for Him. He's king. Right? And the kids understand it. You understand it. Everybody understands. The thing is, most of the time we don't understand. We end up with crackers and cheese at bed while we're reclining. And it's a little bad on the waistline, just a little bit. Bring a glass of juice when he's shaving. Set it in front of him. I don't know. Now some of you will sit here and say, he wouldn't like that. Then figure out what he would like. And stop fighting me. You can fight me and you can win your argument with me. You're sitting there arguing with me, some of you. Well, you can argue all you want to, but I'm going to do everything I can to keep my husband. And you can just go lose your husband if you want to. But you better find out what he would like. And if he tells you, I don't like that, then what does he like? Keep trying till you find something. He must like something. Surely you've got a man who likes something. What did he like before you were married? Then how come it changed so fast? Appeal to his sense of taste. Food at unusual places and times. Now, I don't mean pies and cakes and stuff that'll give him an early heart attack so you can start a new courtship. I'm not advocating that you keep, having man after man after man. Maybe it's an apple in the suitcase. But maybe it's an apple that you chose, and he sees that it's a special apple. And you went and just bought one apple. You got a bag of apples for 89 cents. Can you get them for 89 cents? You got a bag of apples for $2.89. You got a bag of apples for, well, what is it then? I don't know. But you bought him one apple that cost $1.89. Isn't fruit terrible? It's absolutely atrocious. I know it is. But you go spend a lot of money on some special. If he likes that, I don't know if he likes it. Whatever, don't argue with me, okay? If he doesn't like an apple, get him a guava. Can you buy guavas? What are they like? Well, I don't know what you like. I just don't want you arguing with me. Proverbs 31:14 and 15 says, she bringeth forth food from afar. That means from the kitchen to the bathroom. And she giveth meat to her household. I mean, does he like ice water? Does he like his water with a couple of ice cubes in it? Well, then don't say, I think I can get by this time. He wants a glass of water. I'll just go out there and run it at the spigot. Have you ever done that? Or at the faucet. I'll just let it run a whole long time. He'll think there's ice been in it, Go and get the ice cubes out and put some ice in it. That says something, people. You want to get through to him? Get through to him with ice. Okay. Now, hearing is the very last one, and that's the only one we use. We say, I told him, and I told him, and I told him. I just don't know why he's not doing what I told him to do. And besides, now, once in a while, we will use a list. I gave him a list. I even put it on a list and put it out there. So when he came home, he would see what he was supposed to do. Do you know what he'll be sure to do? Not see the list. I mean, you can put it in a sign, in a window as he's coming up. And he's going to see to it that he doesn't see the list. If he's a man. And you ought to be thankful if he doesn't see it. And ask God to forgive you for your stupidity. Now, he may say he wants a list, but he does not want a list. I mean, he just doesn't want it. I heard somebody ask recently, what do you do if you just ask him and ask him and ask him and nothing ever gets done? And 4 ladies, all married to men, who are really all doing a great job for God, just laughed and said, we do it ourselves. You say, yeah, if I had a man who was greatly used to God, I'd do it myself too. Honey, where do you think they got that great man used to God? Do you think that he was dumped on their laps when they were 21 years old? You don't believe in woman the completer as preacher talks and discusses? You don't believe that you're part of that man being greatly used to God? Really, you don't? You don't know that as you give him the special place, the unique place, and treat him, you say, well, boy, the way he's lolling around now, I don't see it's doing much good. Just do it anyway. Or you might ask him, is it all right to hire somebody? If it's something you just cannot do. Now, that might do something, especially if he doesn't have the money. But if it's just something that has to be done. But listen, I don't know many of the men you greatly used to God who are spending a lot of time. I know when Dr. Robertson goes on trips that Mrs. Robertson sees to it that she asks for help and gets help and sees to it the car's ready and some things like that. And the suitcase is packed and an apple's in the suitcase and a note's in the suitcase, and it's ready to go when Dr. Robertson comes home to get into that car. I don't know when she started it, but do you think Dr. Robertson was the man he is now when they were in their early 20s? I don't know where we think we get these people. You don't get an instant man used to God. Some of you think that you just put a little husband in the bottom of a cup. Grind him up and use powder, throw it in, and add hot water. Instant man used to God. You don't get an instant man used to God any more than he gets an instant woman used to God. It's blood, sweat, and tears. It's trying to figure out, and it's taking an awful lot sometimes, and figuring out everything in the world that you can do to get through to that man. Get through, not to get your way, get through to tell him in a million different ways, hey, I love you. People, before I close this, may I tell you this is how you way to get to your children, too? Teenager comes in and you've had a little fuss that morning. You're not on the best of speed. And an apple pie smell. I don't really believe people in putting an onion in the oven. By the way, don't try it. It'll be found out. It won't go over well, probably. A real apple pie. I'd come home at noon from school and my mom would have meatloaf, baked potatoes, and baked apples. And listen, I don't know what heaven smells like or heavenly manna smells like, but that's mighty close to it. When I went away to college, I sat before lunchtime in classes dreaming of baked beans with brown sugar and bacon in them. You can get through to teenagers with a smell coming from the oven. It says, I love you. If they won't listen to your talk, they'll listen to the smell. They'll listen to the smell of apple pie or whatever their favorite is. You can get through to their smell, to their taste. You can get through. There's an awful lot of ways to get through. You could sit down tonight when you go home and take these 5 senses and list 25 ways under every one of them, and you could spend a year just getting through all of those once. There's sight. It's God's just given us everything with which to work. I have an Aunt Leela. Some of you saw her at the spectacular. And Aunt Leela always smelled good when I was a little kid. And I'd go up to her house. My mom and Dad would take me up to their house, and she always had pretty things, little knickknacks sitting around, and pretty soaps and bubble bath, you know. There's a lot of ways to get through to kids. Do you remember a favorite aunt you used to like to snuggle up to? She smelled good. Do you remember it? Why not do that for your husband? Why not do that for your kids? Why not do that for your school kids? Why not just get through to people? Why not do this to help women? Why not do this to see to it that you get through to women and girls? Hearing. It's really the last one. A word fitly spoken is as an apple of gold in a picture of silver. A word fitly spoken is as an apple of gold in a picture of silver. One time I understand that this picture meant really a beautiful silver bowl, more like a piece of hollowware. I'm not exactly sure, but that's what rather than a picture up on the wall. And one time I got a silver bowl, and I bought beautiful golden apples to see what that looked like. See, you can teach this, but take your apples, let them eat them, let them taste them. See? Sunday school, back and forth, bus kids, whoever it is. A group of women showing them how their words are as an apple of gold and a picture of silver, then let them taste and eat and chomp and hear while you're telling them. And they've seen this beautiful picture. I did it once for a group of women. I mean, don't ever just come in with just, nothing. You have the whole world from which to pull. Relive good times with your husband. Let him hear you tell others something he's done that's good. I love to hear from someone else that someone else told to someone else something good about me. I love to hear it that way because you don't think that there's no danger that you think they're flattering you. You just think it just means a whole lot more when you hear that, hey, I want to tell you something. They used to call it in the South something about let me trade glass with you. Have you ever heard that expression? It meant, I've got a compliment I heard about you, and I'll tell you if you tell me that one you've ever heard about me. And that was kind of cute. I kind of like that. I mean, store compliments up. Don't go around to somebody, somebody told me this, and I feel like I ought to tell you something bad about you. Forget all that. But remember all the compliments and store them up, and you got little goodies to throw out every once in a while. It's more fun. And let him hear you give those compliments out. Question how he became so great on something. I just today saw, I asked a student for something he did on my husband during my husband's last birthday before the student body. He said that my husband was a list of things, and they were all so very beautiful and so good, and we were so happy and excited about what that student said. And as I sat there, I said, he is every one of those things that student said, and that student just doesn't know how much he's that. And then I thought, well, then I should tell him. So the student gave me the list, that I'm writing all the reasons why every statement the student said is true. And I'm going to give him facts. Men like facts. We like feelings, they like facts. It's not enough to say, oh, that was a good sermon. How was it a good sermon? In what way? How did the people react? What part did you like best? They want facts, not feelings. This is the one we use most, the hearing. It's the one that we should use the least. And we should use it most often in a completely different way from what we do use it. Don't give them teaching. Don't give them criticism. Don't give them any points. Don't get any points across. Don't give any suggestions. Don't criticize in public or in private. It's not enough just to not criticize in public. You don't criticize in private either. And that probably the greatest thing that you can see, where you'll say, well, how am I going to let him know? Let God let him know. And you be everything you're supposed to be, and God will probably do that for you in a tremendous way, whereas if you had tried to let him know, he would have gone against it anyway. Proverbs 31:26, she openeth her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness. Watch your voice, the volume, the tone, that there's contrast, that you have a pleasing voice, that you're not shrill, that you're not too loud, or that you're loud enough. That watch everything about how you say, get through to that man, people. I think you think it's worth it, or you wouldn't be here. Let's go after that man. Heavenly Father, help us to keep the love that we have, if we have any. Help us to get it back if we don't have it. And help the ones who've lost it and have no opportunity to get it back. Help our Christian marriages. Help us with our Sunday school kids. Help girls with boys. Help them to be just everything you want them to be, and help them to be friendly and outgoing toward everyone, and in the right way and not in a brazen, aggressive way. And help them to know how, in a right way, to just be pleasing to everyone so that you can give them the man that you want them to have and that he'll notice them. Oh, Lord, just help us to go after everybody for you. For Jesus' sake, amen.